So we're back again, and the obligatory comment that if you look down below the video, we have the index of this video and a link out to the big index for the last 3 years, and another index back to Ross Agriculture, which goes back, we had like 3 years of that. And there might be a few other things down there in that stuff you can dig through. And I think I'm all caught up with it. So I just leave the suggestion that, you can look at it sometime and see what's there. Okay, the next thing, I was saying last week that I was going to pull up my Raspberry Pi 4 and either see what code's on it or see what I need to do to load code on it. And I had that. So during the week, I dug up a monitor that hooked up to a keyboard and a mouse and powered it up, and it does power up, and it's got Ubuntu 2404 on it, and it's got ROS Jazzy loaded on it. And that's about all the farther I got with it. If I were thinking quick enough, I would have loaded that from last week. Again, we had that no-name software that people were talking about. If I would have loaded that on there, that's like real VNC type stuff. And then I could move my monitor back to where it's at now. And then I just log into it. Like right now I could log into it, but it doesn't have that on there, so I can't do that. So that's what I should have done, but I didn't. And the other thing I was saying, I got lots of Raspberry Pis in a box somewhere. Well, during the move that got misplaced, so I have no idea where that box of Raspberry Pis is. And then the only one I have at the moment is my original Raspberry Pi robot that I built. This is the first thing I did with a Raspberry Pi, trying to get this stuff to work. And this happens to have a Pi 2 on it. And I built it because they just announced that, the Raspberry Pi 2 will now run Ubuntu. So that's why I put it on here and ran it, and it did work. It's got that little laser scanner off the vacuum cleaner on top of it. And then it's got down here, it's got a microcontroller board. It's I think it's a TI eval board, just a little one with just a single chip on it. That's got a power driver here and a power driver here for the motors. Down the bottom, it's got two DC gear motors. I think they probably came from Pololu. And it was nice because they've got the thing you can buy the plastic wheel, and then you can buy the aluminum hub, and they go right on the motors. And then the back of the motor has the some kind of encoder on it. So that gave me everything I needed to do a fully navigating robot with fairly cheap parts. And this is, as I say, back when the Raspberry Pi 2 first came out. That's been a long time ago. So that's how old this thing is. So I do have that Pi 2 I can play with, but I think it's too old to do anything with at this point. So I'll either continue on with my Pi 4, or hopefully my other boards will turn up. And if I decide I really need something fancy, I could run over to Micro Center and buy a Pi 5, but I really don't want to lay out any more money at this point. I'm about down to the point where I can tell, is my income going to be going up or down every month? So if I still got more money coming in that's going out, then I can start buying toys again. But for the moment, I'm going to ignore that. So, so the next thing, I was looking at Homebrew Robotics, and somebody posted this message saying, let's just put it up here, start that, do that. And it says, he says, I've finally given up on Micro ROS. I think it offers a solution to a problem that I don't have, and with a complexity that I don't need. And anytime I looked at Micro ROS, I wasn't exactly sure what it's for or how you run it. I played it one time. I think I finally got it to run after spending a couple weeks fighting with it. But he goes and gives you a rundown of what it is and what it does and how he's using it. And he goes on for pages here. And then down here, he's talking about individual, he's trying to do command velocity messages, battery management, code. It has codes currently disabled for touchscreen display. So I guess he didn't say a lot right there, but he's saying, well, that's the kinds of things that he needs to do. And then the next guy says, well, do you have any code or examples for that? And he comes back and says, oh, of course I do. He says, go ahead to his GitHub here. And his GitHub, if you click on that, he's got all kinds of, this is one of his robots, his latest robot. He's got 2 or 3 computers on it, and then he said, if you go back and look at the his description here, he'll say, oh, go look at these directories. So in a response to, do I have code? See, it goes on, and he's telling more. He says, go look at these sections in the GitHub. So he's got examples. I think I don't know if there are examples on how to get it to run with Micro ROS, or that's how he's going to replace it. So anyway, anybody that's thought about Micro ROS or wants to know something about it, this might be a good thing to go look at. And I'll put the link to this thread on Google Groups, and then I'll also put the link to his GitHub, which if you just go to this picture and click on it, that'll take it out to his GitHub anyway. So that's something I need to read through that and see if I can get an idea of what to do with that. And eventually I need to start saying, okay, I need to clean my stuff up. And a good thing to do would be just start off and say, here's the sensors I have, and I don't want to use Micro ROS, and then just go through and figure out, how to get it to do that. So if I can find a couple of different examples to do that, I just need to sit down and start hacking on that, I guess. So go back to my original problem. I've got my robot sitting right here next to me, and it's theoretically all the sensors that were on it should still be there, and they should work. And I had them publishing into ROS1. So my options are either put something on to run ROS1, either a laptop or a Raspberry Pi, and just simply, because the laptop I'm using right now is the one that used to be on the robot. So it'd just be a matter of but I'd swapped out hard drives, so I have to either put the old hard drive back in it or copy the files from the external drive to the internal drive. And then I'll be back to the point where theoretically it will be just like it was before. No, no, I just looked down at that. Where's my stickers that label my USB ports? I realized, no, this is not the one. This is the one I dumped a rum and coke on the keyboard. So it lives here because it has to have an external keyboard and a mouse and all that kind of stuff. So my mainline laptop, which I actually put on my lap while I'm sitting in front of TV, that's the one where I swapped out the hard drive. So, but if I just copy the stuff back onto that one, it should, everything should be there. I should be able to go and say start up ROS, and it should be able to know how to talk to the robot. So I have to keep thinking about what's the most efficient way to do that, or a simple way to do that, or is it even worth doing this? But if I just get that laptop, I could stick it right on the robot and make sure test all the sensors before I take it outside to make sure they all work, and then make sure I can record to a ROS bag file. And it'd be nice to get down to the point where I just a single button to start it up. So once I drag it all the way outside, I don't want to have to sit there and fire up 10 different windows with command lines and try to start stuff. It'd be nice if I could just say go and have it do something. Then I can just drive it around the property with the remote control, and then have a bag file I can come back and analyze later. So that's what I need to do. And I was gonna say I don't have a lot of spare time. Well, actually I do, but I spend it watching TV. I suckered for some cable TV stuff and some streaming services. So as I was telling these guys, I was up till 4:30 in the morning watching something. I think I was going through my whole list of YouTube shows that I bookmarked during the day. And I finally decided, I should just go to bed. So I did. So there's lots of things I could be doing. And if I'd quit watching TV, that would help immensely. But I basically at the point, I don't want to do anything. So it's easier to watch TV. So let's see, am I still sharing? Yes, I'll turn that off. Okay, I think that's since I couldn't find my box of Raspberry Pis and I didn't get any farther than that, I guess we'll have to see next week if I get anything else going. So, but for the moment, that's all I have to report for the moment, I guess. So I can turn it over to we'll just turn it over to Al, so we don't have the haggling of saying Al has to go first. So go ahead, Al.
Programming always goes better with a rum and coke. That's what I always say.
Yeah. I always say don't knock it over. That's
following on with your Micro ROS. My understanding is Micro ROS was the ROS2 answer to ROS serial, which was to get stuff on and off of our microcontrollers. I looked at that post and I dug up one of his links that he mentioned, this SIG YN to Teensy. And I was just perusing through that quickly. I mean, he's subscribes to Command Velocity and looked like he had 3 or 4 message types in here from his Teensy. Like he's got a message type here for RoboClaw, one for Diag, one for ODOM. So yeah, it looks like this solves a problem that I definitely have, and that is, getting data on and off the Teensy, and then in my case onto the Raspberry Pi. So it'll be useful to have that as an example. Thanks for sharing that. A little bit closer to home in my world, I've got this. Well, that's a little bit too much. Settle down. I've got this linear actuator. Spent a little time getting a 3D printed bracket here that this Molex 1x5 connector would go through, because I want to be able to disconnect the linear actuator and carry this board around separate from having everything connected to it. As an example, there'll be other connections on and off this board as well, but so I spent time trying to work through how to get that wired up physically. And then after I got it wired up physically, I previously thought I had it worked out on how to communicate from the Teensy to this board, and I got movement, and I'm like, oh, okay, everything's working. And then I went back and tried to use it. I'm like, well, this isn't working. So at the moment, I'm trying to get my Teensy and JRK working correctly. I've got the JRK motor controller configured for something called the compact it has different configurations for how you send a target, and it's moving, but it's not moving. I don't have it under control. It's sort of doing whatever the heck it wants to do. So anyway, I'm at the moment trying to figure out why my set target code is not working, because you have to go through a process of configuring this particular controller with a Windows program. It's like one of the last few reasons I still need a Windows machine. So you get this software, and you set, I've disabled this compact protocol and set the serial input mode. And bottom line is I haven't quite got this working correctly, and therefore my linear actuator is not under stable control. I did work a little bit more on my radio control software, get the data from my radio, my DIY radio control built. So at the moment, my main loop on my Teensy looks like this. I get data from my radio control. I try to control the transmission, which isn't working, but I try to track the rate of hot comms from the radio control. Currently, it's configured to operate at 10 hertz. And so that's what my main program that'll run on the Teensy is looking like for low level control. I've been having some struggles with getting the serial and the Raspberry Pi to communicate clearly, and I think some of that is linked to, I think Ubuntu wants to have a dummy monitor or a monitor hooked up to the Raspberry Pi at all times. So at the moment, I've got a monitor hooked up, but I'm gonna have to go back and
There's a solution to that. I think
talk.
it's called a dummy HDMI plug. So
Yeah.
go look on Amazon or somewhere. I think they're like $3 a piece or something, and you just plug it in, and it thinks it's got a monitor.
So I, I definitely am going to have to get that hooked up to get some consistent communication. So that's a little bit of where I'm at the moment, is dealing with low level controllers and getting my radio control to communicate clearly, and trying to do a little wire harness management at the same time. So that that's about all I've got worthwhile today.
While you're still right there, can you back up to your main page for GitHub?
My main page for GitHub.
Yeah, when you first came into this, is this the?
Like, this is what I have
Yeah,
for.
can you just copy and paste that into the chat?
Sure.
Otherwise, I've got I already post every week. I put a link out to your GitHub and a link out to various other things. But if nothing else, I'll compare this and see if that's any different. And if it is, then I'll. Yeah, it saves me from having to try to look at the screen and figure it out. And it also, anybody else that wants to look at it, if we have 20 people have to go try to decipher the stuff off the top of the URL there. Yeah, we can just save
Yeah,
time by putting it in the chat.
I did update my README to make it a little bit clearer what I've got going on. So that's probably changed since the last time maybe you looked at it, but that's at that link I just
Okay.
that I put out there. So I go into a little bit of detail about what's on my remote control, and some of that's just for my own thinking, for my own or memory to say, now what am I trying to do here? Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Okay, Bob, do you have anything?
I came up with a keyboard, so now I can finish setting up my Pi 5 with Ubuntu. At one point, all I could do is mouse around and point and click. I did look on the internet for other solutions, and one guy used his mouse to copy single letters off of the labels and then paste it in, and he was able to finish it up that. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Another guy said, well, you don't have to have a fancy password, just put in something simple and then change it later on. I said, no, I'll just wait. So I got my keyboard up and the mouse, and I got my new motor controller. I have to hook that up. And then I've been playing with a solid remote wireless receiver. This I used here a while back to turn my Jeep on and off, and it goes right to the power for motor. So between the battery and my on-off switch, I would have a heavy duty, normally closed relay, but then my remote thing has a internal relay that's normally open. So the theory is I can hit that and that will open up my power relay. And I've tested part of it. I've got that working. So now let's hook everything up. But as I'm hooking up all these coils for the relays, do you turn off the power or do you turn off a ground? So That's about where I'm at.
Actually, with a relay, you can put it on either side because it's, it's just a switch.
Yep.
But typically I would switch the power, not the ground, because that might cause other weird problems with other devices trying to use the same ground, or
Yeah.
you end up running the high power ground through the low power of your microcontroller or something if you start doing that. So I usually try to switch the high side, the power side.
The power side. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the matter of connecting grounds. So if I use the motor power to run things, I don't think there'd be any interference if I make a common ground between them. But that's about where I'm at.
Bob, can you talk a little bit more about that motor controller that you posted an image of? Why did you choose that one?
I've got it right here. Let's see. And I've got a picture of the Amazon page with the details. I haven't started using it yet. It was half the price of my previous one, and I'm hoping to run it with pulse width modulation because that's what my VEX system uses. Let's see what else.
And so
On
then
that-
what will drive the VEX? How are you going to get?
On the VEX, I have a remote controller. I'll show it to you. That's this thing right here.
Got it.
That controls the VEX module, and then coming out of one of the ports, it goes over to the motor controller. And so there's two of them. I have to make some kind of a converter because on the VEX, the socket is 3-pin, power, ground, and signal. And all I need is the signal out of it. But it's very flimsy, so I have to come up with a sturdier socket, plug-in socket arrangement. I've got some low temperature wax. I thought maybe I could utilize somehow, maybe drop some of that in there, but we'll see. I'm going to have plenty of time to think how to do this.
Well, just to build on your use case of surveillance, I happen to be in Texas at the moment, and chasing the armadillos out of the yard would be a good use for your robot platform.
You had some kind of a contraption to trigger a spray can, didn't you?
No, not me.
Somebody I saw somewhere, someone rigged up, maybe it was for a paint can or something, but it was a remote controlled trigger for an inverted spray can for something. I was thinking, why not use like bear spray? Whether it's 2-legged or 4-legged, just hose them down with that. Of course, I might get sued, but
yeah, I definitely could have used your surveillance platform to track these critters down.
Yeah, but right now everything is just going to be remote control, nothing autonomous.
Okay.
We'll have more till I get more confident with it.
I've never encountered an armadillo. Are they mean? Are they? I'm not going to ask if they're cute. I guess if you like armadillos, they'd be cute.
Yeah, they're nocturnal. They don't seem to be mean. I think they're solitary animals, but they dig up your yard looking for grubs, and they can make a big hole. So I think they burrow too literally around my fence rows. I've got, the holes half the size of a microwave that they've dug up. So They're destructive little critters.
In your area of Texas, are they impacted by the wild hogs?
I have friends down here who have had hogs. I have not. They say there are two kinds of landowners in Texas: people with hogs and people who will soon have hogs. So I'm I'm the second one right at the moment.
They can do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah. Then there's no easy way to get rid of them either.
Oh. Wow, it's surveillance drone with a 30-06.
Well, we'll start with your land-based platform first.
Yeah. That's about all I got for now.
I'm good too, Jeff.
On Bob's motor board, verify, because the control lines on those, depending which one you buy, act a little bit differently. So make sure you've got the right thing that you're putting into it. Some of them will have a PWM and a direction. Oh, you said you're taking off a VEX, so it's got 3 wires. So is that putting out an RC PWM, like radio control
No,
PWM?
I think the document said it was pulse width. So we'll have to look.
The document for your VEX controller, or the document for your driver board?
For the VEX, I think the motor controller can do either one. But
Okay. Well, as far as saying it as PWM, radio control stuff is PWM. It's just not 100% PWM. It goes from 1 to 2 milliseconds wide, so that don't just because it says PWM, you can't just assume it's all the same stuff.
Okay.
Radio control acts differently, and again, that's why you have to look at it to see if it's going to match what you have.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a long look at that.
And then some of the boards will have like a forward enable and a reverse enable. So you either PWM the forward one or PWM the reverse one. So you got lots of variations there. You need to track down to see what you have and see if it matches your other, say your VEX controller.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I blew up my first one.
I was thinking about that one time. Maybe you didn't actually blow it up. Maybe just was it connected to your VEX, or did you have like a micro controller talking about?
It was, but with all the moving we've done, and maybe I wasn't too careful on how I packed it, so maybe something shorted out.
So I was just thinking maybe it's that not actually your driver board that's bad. It's whatever you're talking to it with. But
oh, sure,
that would be more likely if you had your own microcontroller and somehow the software wasn't doing what you expected and just made it look like your motor driver board was going full blast or something. So that's just something else to think about.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I don't want to keep buying motor boards right now, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, this living on retirement funds is kind of crimping my style.
Don't release that magic smoke. That's what makes them work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I need to go another month to see if let my finances calm down, to see if my, I got money coming in or money going out every month. So that'll change my lifestyle too, probably.
Setting up this new house is a definite change on our purchases.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see.
I'm good, Jeff.
Yeah, I can see moving into a new house like that, especially if you had it built for you, and that way, that's a whole new world of stuff to deal with. So. Okay, I guess I'm done. I can't think of anything else to complain about or whine about. So, you got anything else, Bob?
No, I'll start my wine list for next week.
Well, that's a mighty fine wine you got there. That's a Vintage Tuesday. Okay, so I'll stop the recording.
Oh yeah.